Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the DTC Podcast. We're going to be doing some questions and some answers on a lot of the stuff that's been going on lately in Destiny and with Bungie. Today in the podcast, we're going to have two guests. We're going to have Domination and we're going to have Fibeto. Say hi, guys.
Hey, what's going on?
The more people we have on the show, definitely the better. Isn't that right, guys?
Absolutely.
I tried to get Deej on here, man, but Deej was not taking my phone calls. So
What?
I know. Big shocker. All right, so we're going to start tackling the topics and the questions that we have here because there's been so much going on since the last time we spoke. Topic number one. Last week, Bungie fired Harold Ryan, or he stepped down as studio president, and former executive producer and chief operating officer Pete Parsons will be taking the reins as Bungie's CEO. The forums have been abuzz with this news. The move is hopeful while others expect more of the same. There was a post on the forums from Carnival, asking the community whether or not they were hopeful, in which he asked a lot of the players to vote and comment about whether the firing of Ryan and the hiring of Parsons gave them hope for Destiny and for Bungie. In the body of the post, Law did write, "It's this one statement from Parsons that has me hopeful. You have yet to see our studio's best." Out of 1,098 votes, 46% said the move made them hopeful for both Destiny and Bungie. 32% said they are not hopeful for Bungie or Destiny. 15% said they were undecided, and 7% said they were hopeful for the future of Bungie as a company, but not for Destiny. So real quick, I'm going to go through the replies to the post, and then I'm going to ask you guys some questions. Unspoken Threats wrote, "Only good can come from new management. They recognize the uprising, the boiling point, and no longer believe it will simmer without intervention." That's good. I like that. Dita wrote, "I look at this tidbit of news and see this as a step in the right direction. Is it making me jump for joy? No." Stargazer wrote, "It looks like a good move, but there is still that Activision and Luke Smith problem." Yeah, no shit. Sorry, I gotta laugh at that one because that's constantly in the back of my mind.
It's the truth.
User Code 25 wrote, "Nope, not hopeful at all. Maybe if this was an external hire and they actually fired the previous CEO, Parsons, with the COO, so he's most likely been a part of the terrible decisions made up to this point. Maybe he has been in the process of it." NCE, yeah, pronunciation. NCEXNYC wrote, "Reminds me of the time in the Army way back when they changed the name from mess hall to dining facility. The food was still the same." Interesting. Law did post his poll before the weekly update came out. Many players who had responded as hopeful edited their responses. Subumbra Florio wrote, "Have you read the weekly update yet? Instead of addressing the events in the last couple of days and using it as an opportunity to finally start," you're putting me through my fucking paces here, man, "to finally start communicating openly with their player base, then, like always, so much for hope." Googly-eyed Dog wrote, "Oh dear, that weekly update. I expected something, well, anything, to acknowledge the problems we are all experiencing. Seems like everything is rosy in Bungie's garden, though. It would appear that Bungie, like Nero, continues to fiddle while Destiny burns. I have changed my vote from undecided to no hope." So here's the question, guys. After all that shit, question for us. What do we think, okay, does the firing of Ryan and the hiring of Parsons give you hope for Destiny and or Bungie? We'll start with that, and then we'll follow it with, did the weekly update change your answer to that question? So, what do you think? Does the firing of Ryan and the hiring of Parsons give you hope for Destiny and Bungie? Law, go.
Yes. And I agree with I think Unspoken Threats is the one who said, any change in management at this point is good news, and I have to agree with that. Obviously, the jury's still out to see just how good or how different things will be or if they will be, but, it can't get any worse than what we've had, so I'd say yes. It makes me hopeful.
I'd agree with that. I mean, I have a pretty cynical outlook on the game right now, just because, it's been out for over a year, and we still have some of the same problems we've had since day one. And so at this point, the fact that they did let him go, that shows me that they are trying to some degree, but I'm kind of burnt out right now on the optimism.
What is it about the game that burned out your optimism?
Honestly, I'd say the biggest thing would be the constant changes. You know, when the game first came out, you know, I felt like it was a good game, but, you know, it had its rough spots. And, of course, it just came out. But then we had The Dark Below and House of Wolves. Now, when House of Wolves came out, the high point for Destiny, because that was when we got Etheric Light, so all of our year one stuff could be maxed out. You know, everybody could have Fatebringer, Icebreaker, all that stuff could be 365, and you know, you had 2 raids at that point. I feel like, you know, that was the most content we ever had at one time. All the other DLCs, they took stuff away, like the Taken King. You know, everybody was so excited, but then you know, everybody was so excited for, you know, King's Fall and all the year 2 stuff, but then Vault of Glass and Crota's End became irrelevant. So it was like they're giving us something but taking away 2 things, you know, with each thing that they give us.
It was a smack in the face for me every time that I would go to all the trouble of actually scheduling a raid or scheduling all the time to be able to play with my friends to finally earn one thing, and then all of a sudden, like, next DLC comes out, all of a sudden it's completely irrelevant.
Exactly.
So the burnout for me happened pretty quick. Fibeto, what about you? Do you think the change was good, and did it give you hope for Bungie, or do you think that,
No,
you think it's bad?
I'm looking on the positive side, but I can I see the negatives to it as well, possible negatives with it. There's a lot of feedback to look through that shifts my opinion around with it. I'm definitely hopeful with it.
I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't paying attention to Ryan until now.
No, not at all.
You know, the fact that he's now gone and Parsons is in there. I mean,
yeah, we'll see it. You know, changes are good and they can be bad, but only time's gonna tell with that. Can't really. A lot of the kids in the forums or people in the forums, they hear something and they immediately judge it and say that's bad, or the new content's awful. But as time goes on, you try it out, you actually get to experience it, you realize that some of it's good. I want stuff to be fixed and be better.
I would give so much for things to be better right now with the game, because there's just so many things that just, if it's Souls had mentioned it a couple of times on the forums that I saw in some of his posts about going back, and I think there was one of the posts I had made, and it was like a thread. It was like, oh, what would you customize your PvP settings to be? And Souls, he commented on the fact he'd like to go back to the year 1 settings for the weapons. And that's just about the weapons. When it comes to the content, the amount of changes that they've made to it over time, the burnout is real because of so much that the people have actually put into the game to find that the time they put into it has actually just been for nothing. Oh, here comes more stuff and we got to earn that. So yeah, like if this guy's going to bring some changes to the table, I'd love to see them soon.
Going to what Dom was saying, with House of Wolves being, the most we ever had. The Taken King was good for the first, I don't know, maybe a month or so. But the thing is, it was all you had all the new Amalon and Haka and the new classes to play with. But once you got into it, you realize that really everything's just reskins of year 1 weapons. There's nothing really different in how they perform. No new or interesting perks, and if anything, they just weren't as good. Didn't have as much character as the weapons that we used to have, and that was a big thing for me.
One thing I'm thinking of, when you're talking about the new Foundry stuff, why is there not like a Zero sidearm or Amalon sidearm, rocket launcher, stuff like that?
Going to that is why do like some of them have some stats and some don't. I didn't know until two weeks ago that the Amalon scouts not only couldn't be full auto like the Zero scouts can, but they can't have explosive rounds either. It's just like, why, I don't know why they limit all that shit. It's just kind of stupid.
A lot of people
like the Zero scouts.
I think it's because the rounds fire a blue line of light and they don't want explosive rounds to be made of energy. I got nothing, dude. That's the best I can come up with. Does anybody here know whether or not Parsons actually played Destiny? Has anybody ever seen anything in the past? I mean, I'm not taking a shot at the poor guy. I mean, he's got a lot of shit on his plate when he's coming in right now, but Does he play?
I think that all the devs and people that are putting the game together really should play the game, because how are they really going to know what's going on? So I think that they should be playing, and I think they might not, but I don't think they play the game, and they definitely don't play the game how we do. And if they don't play it like, and I'm not saying they don't, it's just my opinion, but if they don't play it to its fullest potential and really go through everything and see what it's about, how are they going to know what really needs to be changed or anything?
And that's an awesome point. You know why? Because they increase the grind, and they increase the grind, and then they increase the grind. Well, how many of them actually play to the point where they experience how much grind is in the game?
Right, I agree with that. They're capable of that with what they have on their plate, even to sit and play how we do.
That's no excuse. Not to me.
Well, personally,
It's not.
for me,
I'm not saying you're making excuses for them, but it's if you're seriously gonna put that much crap on the plate of the players and the community, then you have to experience it to understand it. So if you're not going to experience it, then you don't know whether or not it's right or wrong when you're not the one who's having to endure it and go through it. Like, that's just my opinion, but...
was stated before, I think Law said it probably can't be worse. But we discussed in the last one we put out that, Destiny 1 is just floating along, and there's not much that's going to happen with it, Anything that's going to come is going to come in Destiny 2, and obviously the YouTubers, particularly Triple when he put out his video, and then Goth Valiant was kind of ripping him too, and I think that was what really got them crapping their pants over everything, and honestly I'm pretty sure that's what cost Ryan his job, because it's one thing, when we say on the forums, shit's fucked up, it's one thing when we come on here, but when there are people that they invite to their studios, yeah. Start
there was a lot of agreement on YouTube. There was a lot of people coming forward going, "This is crap. This is bullshit. You're making us hamsters, or you're experimenting with us." And that's just about that part when they did the matchmaking thing.
Those guys weren't saying anything that we haven't been saying for a year and a half. But finally it's coming from them. And there's 200,000 people responding to threads and responding to YouTube videos. They have to take that a little more seriously. But yeah, I think Parsons, I'm going to take him at his word that he wants this to be, what we've all been saying. Destiny should be fucking great, and in a lot of ways it has been, and a lot of ways it hasn't been. But it can get there, and they've been on the verge of this for a decade, even with Halo, it's always, it could be, it's just, they kind of got there with Reach, but, there's this, we have this idea that they're going to come out with just this ultimate experience, and can they do it?
I just keep getting the impression, dude, that they've got stuff hidden and they're just holding it back. I don't know. I just
Definitely.
Yeah, if you think about all the things that were taken into consideration before he left, okay, I'm talking about Ryan, okay, and Parsons steps up. He's got the entire arsenal of everything that Bungie has already been holding on to because of maybe what Ryan was already saying, hey, let's hold this back, or whatever. Let's not put this in this DLC. Let's not put this in this content. Okay, now here comes Parsons. Now he's got this opportunity where anything that goes back is something that he has influence to put into the game to actually make it better. Question is he going to wait for Destiny 2?
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm kind of curious.
I don't think there's any meaningful content coming the rest of this expansion. Someone was posting today, I think there's going to be a Taken King size expansion that's going to be announced in the next month or two, and I don't see that happening. They told us 6-8 months ago, maybe longer, that the live team consisted of 3 people or 4 people at that point.
That scared the shit out of me, dude, when they said that. Just 3 people.
But you know, the rest of those employees
Like the hopes
are
and
working
dreams rest on
Destiny
3
too.
dudes.
But that it made sense because as we all know, it was. But that those 3 or 4 people were doing, all the content existed. It was all the shit they cut out of Staten's game, and
True.
so they were just taking that and figuring out how to piece it back together and how to the dreadnought and everything existed. And so it didn't take the whole studio to figure out how to repackage that to us because all the elements existed. But I don't think they realized that Taken King was gonna fall flat so fast, and that they wouldn't be able to keep up. I think they thought once they introduced the silver, put a couple more people on the team, that they'd be able to pop stuff out, and I just don't think they expected what came.
Agreed.
Domination, what was it you were going to add to that? Was it you?
Yeah, that was me. I was just going to say I completely agree with what Souls was saying. I feel like that they've kind of come to a standstill right now because they ran out of content that they cut from the original game. Like, everything that they've had so far, they haven't really had to work on it because it was already finished. And they just decided, we'll just save that for later. Well, now I would say they sort of run out of cards to play, and they have to actually come up with new content now, but they either don't have time or they don't have the resources to do it.
I have to agree with that, and I'll tell you why. Because I've seen a couple of things on the forums when it comes to the community giving feedback, and the feedback that the community gives, some of it's actually made it to the game. We're not, we can't lie. Some of the stuff made it in there, okay? But when it comes to the cards that you're mentioning, yeah, man, I kind of get the impression they're out.
I think the change is good. It shows that they want to improve, I think, and really, who knows what they're doing behind the scenes, like, did they really fire this guy, which I'm sure they did, but, it shows hope, and I'm sure they want to improve, and at this point, they have to improve. I just can't see, I can see 2 companies like Activision and Bungie not succeeding thoroughly, and I don't understand why they thought, at least for me, I actually expect them world, and, just a lot more variety and content, and I think they now realize that that's what we're looking for, and I think they realize that they need to deliver because they won't make it if they don't, and that's my opinion. But I think they have a lot of stuff that they're working on, and I think they're going to do right eventually, and I think it was a good change.
Dude, you're making me so want to bust a gut right now with so much shit that I want to say pertaining to how, okay, Domination made his point. You're right, you're spot on, but here's what's driving me up a fucking wall. It's driving me absolutely apeshit, okay? Law and I talked about this a while ago when Badger was in the podcast. We talked about the coding, all right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that's driving me nuts is the fact that I want to give him my feedback. I do. I really do. But I feel like I'm getting raped when I give it to him. Because then he gets put behind maybe a possible paywall, or after I put my input into the forums and they're going to turn it into some kind of content, then all of a sudden, like, the next time that they put out some kind of expansion or DLC, it's going to get locked behind a paywall, or we're not going to be able to, like, take it with us when we go to the next DLC or next expansion. So it's like, I want to give them my feedback. I want to give them my community input. I want to share what it is that I think that's going to make the game better. But you guys are killing what we already gave you. Stop.
Right.
Like, at one point, I'm hoping Parsons, I'm hoping he looks at it and he goes, Ryan, why did you do this? Why is it that if Luke Smith is going to go on Neogaf and state, hey, we want diversity with the weapons, which is why we're taking elemental primaries out of the game? Were you shitting me? Like, that's 120 weapons you already took out of the game from the first expansion. Because each expansion you came out, there was like 11 weapons with this, 6 weapons with one vendor, 11 with the... Do you see where I'm going with it? It totaled out to like 40 weapons per expansion that got removed before the DLC came out. They were there, then the DLC came out, then they were gone. So that's like 120 weapons already. They took out, but they want diversity. They want diversity. So I'm hoping that he sees that. I do. I hope he's a better guy. I hope he sees it, but
I hear you.
What else can I say?
Well, here's the thing. The thing with the change to me is, again, it's a cycle with them, and they repeat themselves. They repeated themselves when they sold their souls to Microsoft. Miraculously got back their freedom and then sell their souls to Activision. They repeat themselves when they have Halo 2 and decide that they have all this other shit they want to fit in the game, And so, okay, let's put it all in, and they run out of time and end up putting out half a game, which then Destiny, they do the same exact thing, and my hope is that with Parsons taking control, that it breaks that cycle, and that, my fear is that with Destiny 2, which has to come out, everyone was thinking this fall, now rumor is saying, that right now they're just polishing the fucking game, and I just hope to God they're not still coming up with ideas and content to put into the game.
Oh, you mean? Are you referring to something like despite it being Destiny, this is the beta phase for Destiny 2. Like,
I'm hoping
they're testing the waters now.
They know what it is. They've got the story. They've got the weapons. They've got the armor. They've got the quests. They've got pretty much all the shit and know what they want to do with it. And at this point, it's all polish and it's all making it as good as it can be and the best it can be. And that at this point, they're not thinking, oh, what can we put in? Can we make a new class? Can we, make a new weapon class? A new, just that they aren't trying to fit more shit in and come up with ideas and then all of a sudden, well, shit, that doesn't work, and they run out of time and they're out of half-finished monstrosity like they're known to do.
I want to glue the controller to Parsons' hands, and I want him to sit there for a week. Dude, if he's going to be in charge, play the game.
Absolutely.
Just play the game. Just grind it. Just grind it. See what it is that everybody is talking about when everybody's on the forum saying this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. I don't know if Ryan ever actually played. I barely even heard of the guy until after he ended up getting removed. A person can stand in front of you and say a million times they care, but there's no way to know. Actions speak louder than words. If dude actually is going to improve the game, then he's going to perform actions that are going to improve it. You can stand there and say, oh, I'll make it better, but if you're just going to stand there and say you're going to make it better and not make it better, then you haven't done anything. Question number 2, guys. Topic number 2, Bungie's philosophy of the rotating meta. Lost Souls writes, it's got to be painful to accept, but it's time for you to acknowledge that the attempts at balancing this game have done less to even out gameplay as they have forced a constant rotation of must-see weapons. Cosmo replied within that thread because, Cosmo does that. He's around. There will always be weapons that rise to the top of popularity with the community in a game like Destiny. The Sandbox team will continue to make changes to keep the game fresh. Some changes will be popular, some will not. Destiny will continue to evolve. I don't believe the team would ever just roll back to old patches, but they will try to change things up for the better. Community replying to Cosmo, Borda Senglance, apologies to you, dude, if I'm not getting your name right, who quit Destiny just this week, Guardian down, nerfs only create new meta, Wally ZX1, I really don't feel that evolve is the right word to use here. Evolve would imply, to me, that things are getting better. This is about just changing the weapons, and the armor to force people to find out what is the newest, latest, and greatest, grind to raise the light after grinding to get the right perks. I got to agree with that. After several months, that weapon or armor becomes worthless, and the grind starts over, if it even ended. It's true, because you're always grinding for something else. The One stated, you guys should just come up with something that balances everything out and leaves it alone. Stop messing with the whole weapon class when the only one gun in the class needed to ever be looked at. PW Ross Angeles, content should keep things fresh, Cosmo, not taking away our gear and nerf after nerf, not to mention how the attempt to keep things fresh has crippled PvE. It's been a path of becoming less and less powerful. Kelly Green, post is, your sandbox guys are working from a flawed definition of balance. I had a discussion with Kelly Green about balance, man, and I don't know if you guys have had a chance to talk with Kelly, but I got to agree with that.
He's a good guy. We have a little words here. He's a good guy, though. He makes good posts. Good feedback.
Kelly's definitely on it. Touch It replies, why classify a whole class of weapons as broken when it's literally only one or two out of that class? Fix the guns that need it and leave the rest alone. Does it not occur to anyone at Bungie that it's far from a good thing? Whole game weapon rebalance is needed every couple of months. This is the only game I've ever played that needs to constantly tweak every single weapon every few weeks. Shark Hunter 81 states, "No more rotating metas. That's not what we want to keep it. That's not what we want to keep it interesting. Content makes it interesting. Stable PvP setting is what we want. I'm tired of grinding for weapons to fit the devs' newly created meta. Get the blam. Get the shit. Get the fuck. Yeah, sure. Get the fuck out of our sandbox anyway." All right. So the question for everybody here and the guests. Okay. So the idea of rotating meta is pretty unpopular in the community. It is. How do you guys feel about, and let's try and keep, I know my vulgarity can get off the chart. How do each of you feel the rotating meta philosophy to weapon balancing? Who wants it?
Oh, that's okay. I was just saying that, with the whole rotating meta thing, with them essentially nerfing an entire class of weapons to the point of irrelevance, or to the point of it not being competitive anymore, it basically, it takes away your freedom of choice. I've been here since October of year one. Not exactly day one, but a couple weeks out. Somebody recommended I bought it, and back then.
Oh, dude, I'm not going to scold you just for over a month. Keep going.
So back then I felt like you could pretty much use any gun you wanted to and be fine, PvP or PvE. You could use a hand cannon or an auto rifle on a strike or on a mission, and you didn't have to feel like you were unloading an entire clip, into a dreg. That's an exaggeration, but hand cannons, for example, I think they've probably been hit the worst with the not only the nerfs to initial accuracy, the nerfs to range, the nerfs to not only magazine size but reserve ammo. It's just been these over-the-top nerfs to entire weapon classes, like people were saying in the forums, when in reality it was really only one or two exotic weapons at that were the problems. It wasn't even the legendaries. It was, Thorn, Last Word, Hawkmoon, these two-shot, headshot hand cannons when, virtually all of the other hand cannons were 3 and 4-shot kills. And, with auto rifles, it was the same thing, Their big thing was that, whatever there was, this huge majority of players are using the Suros. Well, the only reason they were using the Suros was because and they got this stuff from Iron Banner. The only reason they were using Iron Banner was because they had the bounty, 20 auto rifle headshots, and at the time, Suros was the most stable option. It made logical sense to use it, but they took that as auto rifle are too strong.
I think that's a point where weapons are as balanced as they've ever been, with the exception of fusion rifles, and I think they're heading in the right direction. I think something needs to be done with snipers. Nothing, I don't want to say nerf, but just some type of little change with maybe a little more flinching when they're getting shot. I don't know how effective, like, people say bullet magnetism or hitboxes or target acquisition. I think that you should get a little
hit registration where the body picks up the actual shot impacting it. I think that they're very generous with the hit registration for sniper rifles. I've never used a 1,000-yard stare until just the other day when I got one that had blast rounds and Firefly on it. Holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I went like 22 and like 11 just using the sniper rifle. I barely ever used sniper rifles. That was my first time really using one in like PvP. It was a joke.
Right.
Like I just started laughing because it was that good. So yeah, the rotation of the meta, keep going.
So
what else? Like you think they're in the right direction except for the fusion rifles,
yeah.
but
I think they just need to keep working on it, and they've definitely made improvements. There's a bunch of little things about all the weapons, in my opinion, that could be changed, but I think they're improving. But they need to. I think that they should make it to where all weapons, with the exception of exotics, for the most part, maybe not exactly, all have the same time to kill at their effective range, more or less. And okay,
you
why?
disagree?
I disagree, because the whole time to kill thing, just it's one stat. It's not everything that goes into making a weapon good. I mean, it's the one thing everyone always talks about: time to kill, time to kill, time to kill. Everything should have an even time to kill. Well, the problem with that is that, a hand cannon can have, 8 rounds, 13 rounds, whatever, have to reload. Same thing with the scout. Auto rifle have 35 rounds. With the auto rifle, with the larger magazine, you have an advantage over how long you go before you're reloading, how many kills you can get out of that magazine versus a hand cannon versus, a pulse rifle, whatever, and so if you have an even time to kill, well, if you've got a hand cannon that you're getting, 1-2 kills out of your magazine, an AR you're getting 3 before you have to reload. Well, the AR has the advantage because that hand cannon reload. So how do you go even time to kill on that? There's so much that goes into.
And
Go ahead.
dude, I'm sorry, I gotta say it, okay? When it comes to time to kill on weapons in a game, we've all experienced PvP in different games. Yes.
Yes.
Come on, Destiny's
yeah.
not the only game that we've ever played that's PvP. We play COD, we play Battlefield.
Huge Call of Duty guy.
Okay, all right. So we've played other games. In other games, each developer has their own identity with their weapons and how they balance them, how they do it. Battlefield's got huge drop-off ranges. They've got bullet speed, velocity. Call of Duty, that's peer-to-peer, not on servers. Now, take into consideration the fact that they just brought in Souls. This is to what you're stating about how the time to kill shouldn't be, completely even, because if you think about it, a guy standing in front of a shotgun with the shotgun directly on his head shouldn't have the time to kill of what it would take for a sniper rifle at like 30 yards with 2 shots to the foot. Okay, so it shouldn't have the same time to kill. Destiny's problem with the PvP meta, with the damage, with the time to kill, is that they can't cater to everybody. That's just the way I look at it. They're never going to be able to cater to everybody. And I'm not saying anybody's wrong. I'm saying it's just like that. Stevenson has his version of PvP that he prefers when it comes to the weapons and the time to kill. You've got your preference on how you think it should be. Now, if you take all the people at Bungie into consideration, forget the guys that make the decision. Who is it that's actually playing the game more than the people who make the decision? The developers. So the developers are the ones that are going to go, yeah, you know what, this needs the nerf because we're seeing it now and yada, yada, yada. So they're going to mess with it. And then, honestly, it really comes down to, well, who happened to play the most and test the most, and who happened to reach Luke Smith at that moment and get his ear and say this needs to be nerfed. Like, that's really how I feel about it. But that's me. Souls has a point. Stevenson's got a point. But that's the shared percentage of like how things are going to work when it comes to the weapon balance.
Well,
that's how I feel about it.
I have one question though.
Keep going.
Like, excluding Doctrine and some really nice auto rifles, and there are some really fun auto rifles, there's some, let's say, scouts or even pulse rifles that have a faster time to kill, in my opinion. Not all archetypes, but they'll have, let's say, Grasp of Malik will have a faster time to kill at close range than, let's say, a medium rate of fire auto rifle. And those two weapons against each other at range, Grasp of Malik will have a faster time to kill. So what I'm saying is, all right, now that you said what you said, it makes me think about it a little differently, but everything at its effective range should be whatever that range is. First off, they obviously should all be different. Pulse, scouts, hand cannons, far, medium, close, auto rifles, whatever sweet spot they're trying to, get with that. And Doctrine works really good up close and at medium range. But I think that they need to, find a way for stuff like that to not happen. My comparison with the Grasp and some medium rate of fire auto rifles. So what I'm trying to say is that whatever the most effective range is for whatever weapon, I think it should dominate in that range. And I don't think that's happening right now in PvP. And not completely.
So to be more specific, time to kill would be more relevant for any weapon within its sweet spot of its time to kill for its range. If some weapon, like a scout rifle is like, say, 20 meters, has its time to kill at whatever, we'll say 5 seconds, okay, for 4 shots, okay, and the auto rifle is not in its sweet spot, then its time to kill is not going to affect the guy who's got the scout rifle. I get that. That makes sense to me because it does apply to every weapon because every weapon has its range at where it's going to be the best. Other shotguns, look at how they nerf the shit out of shotguns. So it applies. It applies. The shotgun's time to kill at 50 meters is shit. Okay, it's not going to kill anything at 50 meters, whereas a sniper rifle, that may be its sweet spot. So yeah, time to kill applies, but when
meta, as everyone says, snipers time.
Right.
There is no time to kill. You can snipe right in somebody's face, literally right in front of their face.
right, but you
and
get what I'm
headshots.
saying in comparison to
Definitely.
between you and Souls and the range and the sweet spot for time to kill. Yeah. And that's the problem that they're facing, I think, a large majority of the time when the community goes nerf, 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 nerf. So, Law, what about you?
Yeah.
Meta, upset, love it?
No, I hate it actually. And it I'm not so concerned about the time to kill issues as I am what was it? Wally ZX1 brought up the fact that with this rotating meta, for me it emphasizes just how out of touch Bungie can be with how hard we work for the gear we get, and then they just rotate the meta, and all of a sudden this gear that we've worked hard to get because it makes us competitive in PvP and effective in PvE, but most specifically competitive in PvP, gets thrown out the window and shifted on us, and we got to go back and grind again for new gear if we want to stay competitive, and that to me really reflects how out of touch they are with how hard we work for the stuff we have, So that's more troubling to me than kind of the nuts and bolts of hell. It just reflects that they either don't care or don't get it.
The other thing with time to kill is
I think Souls was.
It's
Go ahead, Souls. I was about to point out something you said. Go ahead.
Hundredths of a second, tenths of a second. We're talking.
Right.
It's so fucking minuscule the difference in these weapons. They want to talk. Thorn versus whatever. Well, fucking 9/10 of a second versus 7/10 of a second. Is that really going to make a difference in your game?
I don't know. They're the experts who just buffed the auto rifles .04.
And again, they want to balance this shit. Well, then make the weapons interesting. Give them interesting perks. When Thorn, everyone was bitching about it. There were a lot of people that said, "Well, make fucking armor that has a Thorn debuff. Where it gives you some kind of immunity or whatever. I mean." No, we'll just nerf.
Dude, I felt like you were more onto something during the first podcast when you. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I agree with what you're saying here, but dude, you remember the discussion on the rose?
Yeah.
Yes.
Make another weapon.
Make a counterpart.
Yeah.
Make a counterpart. If Thorn is too powerful in PvP, give it a counterpart or a counter version.
That's the thing too. Is that when this game released, and I can't be the only one that thought this. When Vex and Suros were great, that you thought, okay, those are great. I'm gonna find something else, and there'll be another gun that comes that's better to try to find, and it never happened. They just, rather than put new shit in that was better and say, okay, everyone's using this, so we'll make some new weapons that are even more fun and to use. No, we'll just fucking kill that and make everything shitty.
Nerf it.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Dom. I wanted to say about them.
Go ahead, Dom.
About them nerfing, how Souls was just saying, well, instead of making a new gun, they just destroyed what we had. I think that was just them taking the easy way out. Instead of.
Dude, I totally agree.
They
totally agree. It's the least amount of
us,
work, least amount of money.
Exactly. They've kind of shown us this pattern of, whenever things get tough or they run into a problem, they always want to remove something instead of adding something, because it's always easier to, cut something out, instead of just making new content. The other thing I wanted to say was in regard to, the whole weapon balance thing and, time to kill and all that stuff. I feel like out of every stat on a weapon, rate of fire, impact, range, stability, reload, ammo capacity, I feel like range is the most important when it comes to distinguishing the weapon types. Because when you really think about it, what's the difference between a hand cannon and a scout rifle? Well, The difference is supposed to be the range, but then you have weapons like the Year 1 Hawkmoon and Thorn that are literally you're at scout rifle range and they're beating scout rifles. That shouldn't be happening. If the hand cannon archetype is supposed to have less range than a scout, which
right, if it had its proper range, then it wouldn't be right.
you know.
If it had its proper range, then we wouldn't have that problem. The proper range wasn't there, hence the reason why it became such a problem. So
Exactly.
again,
So,
yeah.
like
The other
you're
thing
not
with
gonna
that
have
is,
somebody.
I think the cheap
sniping.
way out that you mentioned applies. I think the cheap way out that you mentioned applies. It's less time, less effort, and we've had plenty of examples of it. I'm not harping on the fact that Bungie takes the cheap way out all the time. They don't. I'm just saying think about the examples that they put into let's take the cheap way out. All right, shut off that perk. Okay, shut off that perk. We're just going to leave that perk inactive, like for the subclass for the hunter or the infinity, pocket infinity, like that kind of crap. So yeah, the examples are there where they've done it before.
I'm mixed on it. And, having weapons that you dig and always constantly have to readjust to whatever is the most powerful at a given time. Now, for example, I ran a Trials Passage, Flawless, got a Water Star Adept. Take that into PvE and try and do anything with it, it's just pointless, and immediately end up switching to a Scout Rifle. It's really irritating. Do all that work and get something that's completely useless for however long until they bring it back.
I feel like that their attempt to bring back the auto rifles was an attempt that they were making. Their intentions were good, but they screwed up. They were going to bring it back, and then for some reason, whatever got leaked, didn't bring them back. But I think their intention was to rotate the auto rifles back into the meta. Not saying that anybody didn't have auto rifles because we use them in PvE, but yeah, the point where something you put all the work into getting, you're not expecting to hold on to it forever. But what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to put it on a shelf an entire year and wait for it to become valid again? No.
Exactly. I don't like that part of it. I what the hell? Oh, okay. I've seen that.
So you don't like the philosophy of it. Neither do I.
No,
I
believe
hates it.
that what you prefer to use in a game, say you go back to Halo and you prefer a BR, you're going to use pulse rifles. That's what they're similar, do pretty much the same thing. You should be able to use what you want. You shouldn't have to use whatever is most powerful at any given time. It's people don't like to be forced into things.
And that's the rotation of the meta. And that's kind of, I'm sorry, man, but I don't know whether or not you guys actually feel this way, but the impression I've gotten over the years is that they rotate the meta to increase the grind because they want people getting new stuff and they want to increase the play time because it validates what they've done to the game. It validates their paycheck and it validates their contract that they have with Activision. And I never have ever gotten that impression ever before playing any other game in 30 years. Like, it drives me crazy.
It seems a lot of games or publishers are acting like that today. I mean, there's just between microtransactions and yes, it's a business and all that stuff, but
right.
Yeah.
But this is the only game I've ever seen it. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in other games. Is the industry changing? Yeah, the industry is always going to be changing. It's always going to be changing. Has it changed too much? I think they abused the EULA.
about the rotating meta. Are they just turning everything into the generic game that all the Nerf babies want to cry for it to be, where we're all using the same shit? I mean, honestly, I never thought about it like this until Dom was just talking a minute ago about the hand cannons and the scouts. What's the difference right now between a hand cannon and a scout? I mean, seriously.
Range.
I mean, when the game released, a hand cannon was what, 6 to 8 rounds, and a scout was 18 to 22. So scout, you were sighting in, you had the larger magazine. Well, now scouts, you're lucky you got 12 shots in a magazine, and the hand cannons are up to 12, 14. So and the same thing, you look at the shotguns and the fusion rifles now. They're reduced to the same range. A shotgun and a fusion rifle, essentially the same thing. You just got to charge that fusion rifle. Pulse rifles. What's the difference between a pulse rifle and an AR at this point?
It's comparing the correct weapons with the correct counterparts with the correct time to kill at range. Fusion rifles holding the trigger can take as much time as it takes for somebody to fire off the correct amount of shots from a pistol. So it's like comparing the correct weapons with the correct weapons. But yes, I get your point. I see where you're going with it. Domination was on track, but again, Bungie, their mentality. They're going to rotate it. Cosmo stepped up and said what he said because, I'm sorry, he does have his opinion, and of course, like everybody, he's allowed to have it. But I disagree with Cosmo. I think it's improper at this stage, over this amount of time, for this much stuff to be getting manipulated at the expense of people who invest their time in it. I think it's wrong.
Exactly.
I think it's off-putting. I think it's the reason why so many people left. I think it's a cheap way out, like Domination mentioned it. All right, so going back to it, I understand your point, Souls. I understand everybody's point of view on it. Conclusion is, I'm sorry, I hate it. Law hates it. Domination, you didn't give me the impression you love it. Fibeto, you didn't give me the impression you really love it either.
I'm not really into it. It's not.
Yeah, and Stevenson,
For me, as someone who uses nothing but the Chaperone and the Smite of Moraine in PvP, and I have a bunch of flawlesses, like almost 50, I'm really thinking they're making an improvement. And I think there is a pretty decent...
You are our resident sweaty, dude. You are the hardcore PvP guy, that we got in the group.
So is Dom.
I can understand why you're cool with it. Dom is too?
Yeah, but I'm not, you see out there, you see a lot of conspiracy theories. You see a lot of, really nice snipers. You see a lot of grasp of Maliks and high rate of fire pulses. And you see a fuckload of scouts now. And I think scouts are great right now, and I do not use them, and I never have. I don't know if I ever will, really.
Yeah, but I ain't using the Mida multi-tool.
And they, I don't want to say dominate, but they do pretty damn well, and I'm totally cool with everything right now.
And Souls, you're tired of it. Yes.
Yeah, I'm tired of the rotating meta, and I'm tired of the...
You sound tired, dude. I'm tired too. I'm tired of it too. All right, topic 3. The relative weakness and uninspired design of raid weapons and the lack of elemental primaries. In the past 2 weeks, there were 3 trending posts regarding raid weapons and elemental primaries. First, there was a post by Jay Stevenson Town titled, Bungie, King's Fall weapons are not desirable. And I saw that take off on the forums. Stevenson writes, King's Fall weapons are not special. They do nothing special. They need some individuality, and elemental weapons should drop from hard mode Oryx. Second, there was a post by DTH, pronounced Thanks, titled, No one raids for guns. They raid for highlight to infuse They raid for highlight to infuse shit guns. They're shit guns. Everybody's got videos on YouTube about it. They're crap. Thanks. Goodbye those days. This is what he says. Goodbye those days. You got a raid gun drop and we're ecstatic. It's all the same now. All raid guns are weak and not really interesting. We just raid to get higher light items so we could use them for infusing. God bless you, dude. God bless you for saying that. It's the truth. God bless. Coming from the War Priest. Third, there was a post by BXR Lone Star titled, Any chance of a direct debate with Luke? Dude, you get a direct debate with Luke Smith, I will podcast you directly myself. I will give you like a 15-minute podcast, just you, if you get to speak with Luke Smith. About regarding elemental primaries. This is Lone Star who's asking this question. Yeah.
I like Lone Star's post.
Lone Star wants to talk to you, Luke. Get up off your fucking chair. Statement that Lone Star that really caught my attention, okay, and the attention of others probably, was, I want an answer as to why Bungie won't implement elemental infusion for all kinetic weapons. I think we deserve an answer as to why all elemental primaries needed to be removed from the game rather than allowing gamers the option of elemental customization for their weapons. Yep. And here is a smattering of the responses to those posts. Oh, God, guys. Cosmo replied to Jay Stevenson Town's request that hard mode raid weapons, Cosmo likes you, dude. Hard mode raid weapons have elemental burn by linking to Luke Smith's statement, elemental primaries are being left behind. They had the distinct and undesirable property, goddamn Neogaf, they had the distinct and undesirable property of limiting a broad weapon sandbox to a few weapons. You're free to disagree, but I strongly prefer the breadth of an arsenal of the potential of finding a better legendary. I don't know how he would say this, because I've heard Luke Luke talk. The potential of finding a better legendary than you have to being stuck because of a damage color. Additionally, no legendary weapons with damage colors has the property of making secondaries and heavies more important because of their damage color. Thank fucking God for Vicodin.
Luke Smith says
The
damage
Kung
colors.
Lao, the Kung Lao on the forums. Lao, man, I'm right there with you, bro. I've had no desire. Yep. No desire to raid for the simple fact that the weapons have no elemental damage. It's extremely time-consuming, and getting a team together is a pain in the ass for weapons that are no better than any other legendaries. See what balance gets you, Bungie? You see? Wag your finger, guy. Wag your finger. FWC Titan, I don't get what it said about elemental primaries restricting what guns you use. Their new infusion system is restricting what guns I use. Oh my God. I'm sorry, community, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing because it's my way of dealing with the contrast between what it is that the consumer likes and enjoys, and what it is that, at Bungie, what it is that the community's saying. And there's just so many different ways you can say the same thing over and over. But, Hectic on the forums. Luke Smith has managed to kill my weapon diversity in year 2 with infusion and removal of elemental primaries. Infusion has made it to where I absolutely have to spend my resources on a single item for a specific slot. I cannot rotate out new weapons because my potency drops what I do. Diversity snuffed out. If Luke Smith in fact believes that elemental primaries were the reason VOG weapons were so popular in year 1, then he clearly suffers from, quote, not getting it. Stats and perks made Vault of Glass weapons what they were, not the burns. I would applaud if I could, but I'm holding stuff. Happyton, I got Vision of Confluence on my very first... Yeah, you mentioned that before in something I read. I got Vision of Confluence on my very first run through the Vault of Glass. Everybody flipped out. Now when I run raids, I just hear, oh man, a 305 ghost shell, or shit, I got a 300 shotgun, equal parts hilarious and sad. Mayhem 420, this is the real reason why I have no interest on running the current raid. No rewards worth putting up with LFG or recruitment. Kitty Cat Crew, I feel no incentive to raid because the guns... I see so many people here that I talk to on the forums. I feel no incentive to raid because the guns were intentionally made subpar so that they wouldn't be OP. Even if we never see the return of burns on raid weapons, Bungie needs to make the stats and perks better so we actually want the stuff. Yeah, balance it out. Caber, the only raid weapon I am genuinely happy with is Pulse and Firefly, but even that requires A, rolling the weapon, B, rolling the perk, and C, infusing 4 weapons into it because it dropped at 302. That's triple the RNG that raid drops used to entail, and it does kinetic damage. What a joke. Straight up, Caber. Dangle, what I always loved about this game, this is Dangle here, folks. What I always loved about this game was high hopes for the best raid weapons. Now it's nothing but a search for light. And when you find a great weapon, they nerf the hell out of it. No fun and no incentive. And finally, we got Hectic, who summed up the sentiment of many Guardians' comments with Luke Smith bothers me on a cellular level. Guys.
Hectic's awesome, man. Those are a lot of Those are a lot of great posts there, man. Like, the people.
They are. There are a lot of great posts. They are. It was a good job for the people who put the format together. That would be Carnival mostly, if I'm not mistaken. But
right.
Hey,
we all
words,
are listening.
so,
In here because I'm gonna include it in the podcast. Okay, Luke, if you're listening, dude, this is not a Luke Smith slam session. That's not what this is. What this is basically this is community feedback on a podcast. This is community that we include when we see them talk. It's about a choice that was made and the outcome of that choice for the people who play the game. Okay, and it's gut ripping. So the question, guys, widespread discontent over raid weapons and the lack of elemental primaries in the game. How do you guys suggest making raid weapons relevant, desirable, and worth raiding for? And should there be a new elemental primary weapons and or elemental infusion for primary weapons? Are there any drawbacks to the inclusion of elemental primaries into the game at this point? So we're going to start with the lack of elemental primaries. How do you suggest making the raid weapons worth raiding for? Who wants it?
Dom, I'll take that one. The one comment that I could really relate to the most was the one where he said, you have to meet like 4 different requirements to even get what you want. He wanted the pulse rifle with Firefly. Well, you have to get it at a highlight level. You have to get the gun in the first place, but even if you do get it, it's got to be the right level, and then it has to have the perk. So you're going through too many things just to get what you want. I say it with my friends all the time when we raid, and somebody gets something they don't want, or they get moldering shards. Back in the Vault of Glass days, or even the Crota days, once you got something, you got it. There wasn't this triple RNG. You got the helmet. All right, you got
Right,
it.
it is
That's
what it
it.
is,
Or,
and when you got it, it was worth raiding for. Yeah.
Exactly. You got your found verdict. That's it. You're done. It's not like this 3 or 4 step process.
I loved the elemental primaries. It made Nightfalls easy, but if the rewards aren't going to be that great in year 2, what's the point of extending the duration of a Nightfall? To do a Nightfall and get like a 298 ghost or something, or 398 ghost.
Right, like what's the point of doing the grind if you had it, but now they don't offer it? Did you feel like they were breaking the game? Did you feel like elemental primaries were really breaking the game?
There are certain ones, everyone loves Fatebringer. It was a bit overpowered in PvE. Didn't really see much people in PvP using it, but
right, in PvE. So it could be like insulting to the developers for doing all the work, but I can't see how it would be like screwing with the players in PvE. Wow, that guy just used that gun. Holy shit, it's ruining the game for me. Like I never got that feeling.
It made things a little bit quick. If you say you had like a Arc Nightfall that was a breeze with that weapon. Now it just makes everything a little bit more irritating. Like say a specialist with Void Burn, pick up a Telesto, but you can't progress because you're not getting any special weapon ammo to drop or something like that. And I've noticed that happening a lot, and it makes everything very frustrating. When I could just have an elemental primary and constantly
like
have
with
ammo.
jugglers on or something.
A good enough. Yeah, a good enough amount of ammo to where you can actually do things and not sit around there and waste your time.
I think that all the raid weapons should definitely have their own special perks or a special set of perks, kind of like Vault of Glass. And I think that there should definitely be elemental damage drops on hard raid. I think that they should make it to where you have to meet certain criteria or kill X amount of enemies or not die and, like do a bunch of different tasks and challenges while doing the raid. Really, earn what you're... Yeah, somewhat like that. And really, yeah, sure, why not? And earn your gear, like really earn it, like, maybe do something, feed orcs 20 times for a 320 helmet or, whatever, So I think they should do
or
that.
Or defeat orcs 20 times to unlock the final perk on the weapon that you got from him like 5 raids ago. Like, I get it. Something that makes them worth it, and
right.
Keep going.
So that's pretty much it. I think that my favorite raid drops and weapons were Vault of Glass by far, and when you got them, you're really excited. And I think that re-rolling, getting different rolls on weapons, especially when they're mediocre, altogether, just really ruins it. So yeah, they really need to step it up.
Souls, what do you feel that would be making the weapons worth raiding for, and more desirable for you?
If they put in matchmaking in the game, so people that didn't to raid with would fucking do a shit and get them. But
Hey,
but I will add this.
I have a question. I will add this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, because you said, I'm not the guy to ask about raid weapons, but I would be curious about your take on the explanation for not having elemental primaries as a way to increase weapon diversity and diversity of weapons being
obviously
used.
it's just stupid. It's just
Yeah,
whatever.
okay.
Something to come out of his mouth, you know.
Right.
Needed to say something.
Just
But I
noise.
will add this is with as far as better raid weapons and them being worthwhile, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they put out something good because it'll last a week. I mean, with the way the game is right now, unless they change their approach and they change the answer of every time someone dies to something, the answer is nerf, then the raid weapons, no matter how good they are, they'll be good for a week. Everyone will cry, and it'll get killed like Vex got killed and like every other weapon in this game has got killed. So what's the point of
Now, see,
having
because of
something
what-
good?
Now, because of what you're saying, I gotta ask: did Bungie enable you to think that far ahead when playing any activity in the game is whether or not it's worth it? Like playing the game, as long as you've been playing it, have you now been enabled to? Should I bother with this? Should I not bother with it?
Well, I mean, can't speak for everyone else, but my playtimes drop.
Well, yeah, no, I'm asking
dramatically.
just for
Yeah.
you. Do you feel enabled? Yeah, like do you feel enabled as if like when you're gonna go into a raid, is it worth it? You know, that's what I ask myself every time I'm playing Destiny. But I just wanted to ask you.
Oh, well, I have
Yeah.
no desire to run King's Fall. You know, where I wanted to run Vault of Glass, I wanted to run Crota for those weapons.
I haven't set
had
foot in King's Fall.
zero
Right,
desire.
I'm right there with you, dude.
desire.
I'm right there with you. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I wanted to run Vault of Glass. I wanted to run Crota. King's Fall came out. I couldn't give a shit less.
Yeah,
I couldn't give a shit
what do
less.
I want to get? The scout rifle that, again, I'll go back to it. I'm sitting here, I'm playing a PvP match, and I'm using my Nady Salvation State, you know, and it's better than anything that I've gotten in year 2, and it's basically better than the I forget the name of the raid scout, but you know,
Doom of Chelsis.
pull up the stats on it and put it next to Nady and see how the stats compare. I mean, why would
I think their diversity
irritating.
I think their diversity in the game got liquefied when they started copying the stats from one set of weapons and putting them into another and reskinning them.
Yeah,
You know, I think that's one of the reasons why they didn't include the stuff that was
That's
the
my biggest
content for the
issue.
weapons before DLCs 1, 2, and 3 were the expansions. I think they removed them because if they left them in the game, people would have lined them up and went, Jesus Christ, this is like 5 copies of the same thing. Is there anything that you think that Bungie could have made to do or done that would have made it more desirable to get the stuff? Like in the raid, for the raid weapons.
Yeah, if they would have made actual new weapons that again weren't reskins of year 1 with lesser stats, you know, come up with something new, an original thought in your head,
that'd be amazing.
new perks, you know, something.
Yeah, Stevenson was talking about that. Yeah, there it is. Same argument, which I can't argue against because it's new. It's new stuff. Like,
I wanted to agree with Souls on that, on the whole new weapons thing, and new in the sense of like new actual like new archetypes, like not just new weapons. Because, and if you think about it, you know, Eye is Luna, you know, that's just a legendary Hawk Moon, or you know, Fatebringer, that's just, you know, the generic legendary hand cannon, you know, of that impact and that rate of fire. You know, you have like
yeah.
7 different versions of each gun, but you know, you do have the few examples of guns that are truly unique, like, you know, Pocket Infinity or Telesto,
Sure. Yeah.
you know, Vex, you know, guns that actually behave, you know, Thorn, you know, even though everybody
Last
hates Thorn,
Word.
you know, yeah, the last word, you know, they actually behave differently, and it seems like right now,
There's characteristics of the weapon that define them from everything else and make them truly exotic or different.
yes, but I don't want that to just be limited to exotics. You know, it seems like right now the only way you really
Sure.
get any diversity is with exotics, but you're only allowed to have one at, you know, at any given time. And so it's like if you're not using an exotic primary, you're pretty much using, you know, some copy of another weapon. If I could change one thing about the raid weapons, I would make, and this was an idea, I'm sorry, I don't know who said it on the forums, but I would make the Cocoon perk like an extra perk. How the Crota weapons, they had like Hive Disruptor, and then
Mhm.
all the Vault of Glass weapons had Oracle Disruptor as like an additional option. I would make Cocoon like that. Like, instead of it taking up a perk slot, it's just like, off to the side. Like all of these, it comes standard with every weapon.
Absolutely.
As I feel like that's kind of
And
just
if
a waste of
and,
a
and if
slot.
and if they actually did something like that, I would actually consider doing the raid. But because of all the stuff that's going on with the raid weapons and how boring all the reviews have been and how lackluster it all is, I just don't care. But that's, like I said, it's just me. I get it.
I don't have a lot to add to this one, actually. I think it's all been said, so I'm not going to rehash too much of it. Yeah, I don't understand the statement that having elemental primaries somehow would reduce the diversity of weapons that people use.
Diversity, yeah.
Yeah, I just don't get that statement at all. I agree with Souls that it's just words coming out of his mouth. Don't make any sense. But yeah, I've enjoyed the raid a few times, but I'm not the caliber of raider of the other guys we've got here. But yeah, I mean, to make it worth it, other than just enjoying the challenge of the raid with friends, the weapons certainly don't hold any interest for me. I don't have that hope of getting some amazing weapon, and thus I really don't have much motivation to go through the whole LFG recruitment, whoring myself out, trying to convince people to take me along on a raid, and then working
Right.
through
You
it
have to
for
whore yourself to
3
meet
Right,
it.
and then going through all the communication difficulties and everything else just to be rewarded with something that's just a subpar weapon that has nothing unique about it in any way, shape, or form.
Right. I
Yeah,
mean, the raid
totally get
the
it.
raid can be fun with a good group and with buddies for sure. But I mean, I also know that I have to dedicate, set aside a good chunk of time to get through the raid, and I can have that same fun without needing that chunk of time by just jumping in the Crucible with you guys, for a little while and then jumping out. So yeah, I mean, unless the rewards are better, I don't have a big incentive to raid.